Welcome back. I'm Jenny Wondrasik, one of your research professors, and I'm here to talk to you today about publication of statutes. You may see us refer to statutes in two different ways with two different citation formats, so this video is intended to help clarify this. Let's talk first about vocabulary. The first thing we need to talk about is what is an act? An act is a law passed by the legislature, be it the U.S. Congress or the state legislatures, and then it has to go to the executive branch for approval. Now, this is part of the checks and balances system that you should learn about in another video. A statute is a synonym of act, so they're pretty much the same thing, but you'll often hear us refer to acts in their entirety as the Civil Rights Act, the Patriot Act, and that means that we're really talking about it as it was passed by Congress. You may also hear us refer to sections of the code or a specific statute for today, which is part of the United States Code, which has been codified and arranged by subject. So we're going to talk today about that publication process. But first, let's take a quick look at some common abbreviations. The first is public law. Now, the public law is going to be the very first stage of publication. It will then go to the statutes at large with the abbreviation STAT in your citations. Finally, we have the U.S. Code, or USC. You may also see state statutes abbreviated, such as FLA Stat, and that's referring to the Florida statutes in their codified version. So looking at the publication process, the first thing we have is the legislature, in this case the U.S. Congress, passing a bill. And we have two houses. We have the House of Representatives and we have the U.S. Senate. Both the House and the Senate have to agree to the wording of their statute before it moves on to the executive branch, in this case the U.S. President. The President can sign the bill, he can veto it and send it back to Congress, or he can just do nothing and eventually it will become law. Once we have a law, we have a public law. This means that it's published all on its own, it's not in a compilation, and the only page numbers are 1 through the end of that particular act. And it really doesn't have a formal place of publication. All of the laws for a congressional term are brought together and published in the statutes at large, STAT. So these will be a chronological publication because every time a public law is passed, it's assigned a number as we go along. So you'll have 323 and then 324, 325, etc. So those will be published chronologically in our statutes at large. You'll have numbering that goes through the range of the statutes at large volume instead of for each individual bill. Now, there is no index to the statutes at large, so it really makes it hard to find anything that you're looking for. You have to know your citation pretty much. Or you can use the table of contents for each volume. That can be a little tricky. So what we did was, as a nation, we divided up the acts by subject, and this allows us to keep them up to date as well. So for instance, we have the Higher Education Act of 1965, I believe it was. And then we updated it again in 2008 with the Higher Education Equal Opportunity Act. So we brought those together so they're in one place and we know what is the current law. And that's what we call the U.S. Code. The Office of the Law Revision Council at the federal level takes all of the acts that are passed for a term, chops it up, and puts it into the United States Code. That makes it much easier to find because it's arranged by subject. There's an index, which is very helpful because you can look things up by keyword. And there's also a table of contents for the entire 51 titles. So that is the basic structure for publication. If you want to learn more about either the publication process or how a bill becomes a law, we'll put some handouts for you on the website so you can ease your curiosity. Until then, happy researching.